taking out the trash today on the Daily Ish Show.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition, liftoff.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Daily Ish Show, a show not just for rental housing providers, but anyone looking to get a little bit more white space on your calendar. It's good to see you all. Happy Thanksgiving to come. It has been an amazingly slow week. I love this time of year, and it is a great time to just start thinking about planning for 2023 into the new year and things like this. So whenever you happen to watch this, I love this time of year, and I get super excited. Thanksgiving is literally my favorite holiday. It is absolutely the best, just because what other day do you get to wear like penguin themed pajama bottoms and just get to eat your way to the bottom of any dish that's put in front of you? Fantastic. Should be an Olympic sport. So, but today what we're going to be talking about is taking out the trash. Now, taking out the head trash specifically, and what that looks like. It might look a little bit different than what you're actually thinking. Like, we're talking about taking out the trash, specifically head trash. We're talking about things that actually hold you back. It's interesting that I do a lot of speaking, as you guys know. I do speaking engagements all over the place, mostly in front of real estate crowds, but not always. And it's interesting that whenever I get people that introduce me or people who come to me and maybe want to work with me as a coach, they think that they're coming to me initially because they think that they are lacking systems. And that's what many people think, that it's a lack of knowledge or inadequate systems that is holding you back or holding them back. And they read the book, The Time Wealthy Investor 2.0. They read other things. That they recognize the need for systems. They are students of the E-Myth. They understand the processes and why that is so important and all that stuff. But here's the really interesting thing about that. None of that is going to matter if you have the wrong mindset. Now, follow me here for just a second. Now, some of you have heard me talk about this stuff before, especially as it relates to self-sabotaging behaviors. Okay, so just track with me just a second. Now, I want to point this out. This is judgment. This is not judgment. This is confession. Okay, this is everything I'm about to say here is stuff that I have gone through myself or still battle through at times. All right, so let me ask you, do any of these things sound familiar? Procrastination, right? Setting it, just not doing the necessary work, putting things off into the last minute, or just not doing them at all, right? Seeking perfection. Now, I will tell you that when I went to publish the book, The Time Wealthy Investor, the first version, I kept going through that. I probably went through that book about 11 different times. Now, we're talking about a 300-page book. And I kept finding little errors here and there. And I was like, man, I've got to pull the plug. I got to get this thing published. Otherwise it's never going to be perfect. And guess what? It wasn't. There were still spelling errors. There were still other mistakes that were in there that I just wish that things were different. Right. So that's why that's the 2.0 version, right? There was other things I wanted to change. But if I was just always worried about it being perfect, perfection was the enemy of done. I just needed to get the thing going. What about hiding inactivity, right? We're talking about self-sabotaging behaviors here, where you're hiding inside activity, where you're just convincing yourself that you're just super, super busy. You've got so much to do. But how much of it is really effective? How much of it is really productive? How much of it is actually moving the needle towards a purposeful and well-defined vision for what you actually want? In my case, not much. And I have to be really careful that even today about, am I just busy? Do I look really busy? Am I hiding in activity? How about hiding in inactivity, where I've got so many things to do, I don't even know what to start on first? Can anybody relate to that to-do list of 97 things that you're going to get done today, right? Where it's like, okay, you're not going to tear down and rebuild the deck today as one line item, right? Right? And then that's just the first thing. And then second thing is going to be you're going to rebuild the garage. Like, come on, these are actually leads to the next thing, which is setting impossible standards. And here's the thing: is that, I run into this a lot oftentimes with people who, they might be making, $60,000, $70,000 a year. And they're like, well, I will retire when I have 5 million liquid cash in my checking account. Really? Well, because that's what you need to retire, is have 5 million liquid and you've never made more than 80,000 a year, right? Like that's an impossible standard. I mean, not that you can't get there, but you gotta have some realistic standards, right? How about not finishing things? Where, again, I was the king of getting a job to 75% done or 80% done. I was the king of starting things and not finishing things, just because, again, it was always exciting to chase the next shiny object. Here's one that really rattled my cage, was fear of failure. Now, fear of failure, I kind of got over this one because once I recognized what it was, that fear of failure was really just a fear of criticism. I mean, short of bodily harm, realistically, is there anything that you would try if you really weren't if you really weren't that worried about someone else finding out that you failed? Right? So a lot of times it's really related to a fear of criticism. At least with me it was. How about a fear of success? Now, a fear of success, you might be thinking, well, coach, who in the world would be actually afraid of success? Well, a fear of success is actually a fear of loss, because realistically, it's easier to never have something than to have it and lose it. Right? That was related to a fear of success that I had. False arrogance. Everything's great. Everything's great, dude. Everything is not great. Your house is literally on fire. You need to get out. You need to get safe. Right? Just this false arrogance that everything is fantastic. This next one is one that I still struggle with, and that's rescuing others. Well, let's talk about that a little bit. That would be going out and finding someone who is a project that you can work on. So, rescuing other people. Well, there's a couple of reasons as to why I would rescue others. Number one, because I had a low self esteem, and I would think internally that if I could go and help them, if I could fix them, right, that they would like me, right? And that was related to a low self-esteem that I had. But here's the other thing that was really hard to admit, is that if if I could go to them, right, and I would fix them, what didn't I have to work on? I didn't have to work on this. I didn't have to work on my own head trash. So rescuing others, like, oh, you're broken, you're a mess. Oh, I can fix you. Oh, don't worry about me, right? But I can fix you, right? Rescuing other people was, tied to that low self-esteem, to get them to like me, or just to, again, to distract myself from the work that I needed to do internally. How about complaining? Again, we're talking about self-sabotaging behaviors here. How about complaining? Did you ever notice that people complain to the wrong person, right? They'll go to their job and complain about their spouse, and then they go home to their spouse and complain about their job, right? They're never going to the actual source of their disgruntlement, if that's an actual word, right? But think about that. Again, this is all self-sabotaging behavior, or gossiping, or comparing others to. I mean, now there's a healthy level of comparison, I suppose, but when it starts to lead to envy and other things, it's just absolutely destructive. Being chronically late, which it took me years to break that habit, and still kind of trickles in every now and again. I try to keep me being late to just a couple of minutes here or there, which I think is still not great, right? But being chronically late, having a bad relationship with money, that was just something, I still work through it, and not having a great relationship with money, which trickled into all other aspects of my life, right? And 10,000 other things that take away from the compounding effect of effort. Again, I believe that true success is not only just doing enough of the right things, but avoiding the wrong things that will take away from the compounding effect of effort. Now, I'm not saying these things to make you feel bad. Remember, this is confession, not judgment. So if you can relate to any of these things, I'm not asking you, there's no self indictment here. You don't need to confess it publicly that any of these things, like, oh my gosh, yeah, that one really, really resonated with me. I just recently spoke at the National Real Estate Investors Conference in Ohio, sponsored by OREA. And I went through this list and quite a few others. And there were people who came up and they just felt the need to confess. Wow, like those really, really resonated with me. And there's just some head trash that needs to be taken out, right? So the reality is that things in business, things in life really didn't start to change for me until I started working on taking out all of this head trash. And the reason I'm bringing this up on the doorstep of Thanksgiving is a great time to reflect and just simply be grateful. And when you're being grateful, it's hard to compare when you're just grateful in that moment. And here's the reality, is that when you don't feel like you are enough, it's easy to feel like you don't have enough. Right? And the reality is you're probably enough already. And you realize that our real happiness, our real and true happiness, comes from internal first before it could ever be realized externally. So if you're out there trying to seek all these things to, be happy externally, recognizing that being present first and foremost is what's going to make you happy. Be present, be grateful, and honestly be present with those who are actually love you and want to spend time with you. And that's really it. And when you are grateful, guess what it does? It stops the comparison. It stops living in the past, because by definition, think about it, guilt and comparison, all that stuff is living in the past. That's not living in the present and being totally grateful and in that moment. So stop for just a second, be grateful, be present with those who love you, and happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.